Welcome, everyone, to the second episode of the Strictly Business Podcast. Jon Stanko here with Michael Ritz. We are here bringing you football today, both the NFL and NCAA football. And, Mike, before we get started, a special shout-out to Pete Considori, fellow Iona MassCom grad, doing a great job on the opening read for us. So I want to give a special shout-out and thanks to him.
Yeah, he did. He really came through in the clutch. Another Iona MassCom student getting things done.
Yes, he does. Now, someone who didn't really get anything done. We're going to start off with USC, and USC's Josh Shaw, cornerback for the Trojans, was at one point a hero to America, saving a drowning child from a pool, and then quickly things just fell apart. And eventually, an entire story has unraveled now that I think you couldn't even write this down in fiction. That's how crazy it is. Mike, I don't know if you could summarize the story for everyone listening who doesn't know, but this entire situation surrounding Shaw is out of this world.
Yeah, I mean, for those who don't know, Josh Shaw, first of all, I think one of the worst things about it is that this guy is a senior on a senior defensive back on the USC football team. Obviously, USC, a very prominent college football team, and he lied about jumping out of a second-story window to save his drowning 7-year-old nephew. That was the report that came out. It came out on Monday, and the USC website even wrote a story about it that day to kind of praise Shaw for such a heroic act because he hurt both of his ankles, so he had to be out for a significant amount of time, and that was the story that he told the coaches. And so to everyone's knowledge, he jumped out of a second-story window to save his drowning nephew, and then USC began investigating Shaw's story on Tuesday after receiving information from people who challenged Shaw's account.
Yeah, I mean, what's crazy is I believe that Shaw is also a captain on the team. Reading some articles. Some articles said he was, some articles didn't mention it, so I'm not entirely sure about that. But yeah, he suffered 2 high ankle sprains, which if you think about it, jumping out of a second-story floor, jumping onto concrete, and you only have 2 high ankle sprains, you're pretty lucky the way it is. Now, the second story that's coming out, which involves him possibly being in some criminal investigation in the apartment, but maybe not, we don't know yet, that account has him jumping off the 3rd floor and still only getting 2 high ankle sprains, so he's still very lucky there. But my big question is, why would the school's PR department immediately trust a student telling this kind of ridiculous story and immediately go publicize it without even double-checking the facts? This boggles my mind.
That's a great point, John. That is a really good point. I guess they were just maybe this guy was just so trustworthy that they figured, you know what, he wouldn't lie about this. But you're right. No matter what, you got to double check everything. But what I'm saying is, going back to the police reports and everything, the LAPD confirmed that a man named Josh Shaw was mentioned, but not as a suspect in a reported break-in at a downtown apartment on Saturday night. That's what the LAPD confirmed. Mm-hmm. And then Shaw actually issued an apology after he was found out, but he did everything but say what actually happened to his ankle. So he said, I'm sorry. He admitted he lied, but he still didn't say actually what happened. And then after interviewing several people in the building, LAPD interviewed a woman that said somebody pried open a window, entered the apartment, and fled, but nothing was taken. So that kind of shows me that if it was Shaw, it would kind of explain the broken ankles, because if he would open up the window and he had to flee, he was afraid that somebody was in the apartment, that would give him an opportunity to flee and jump from the balcony. So it's kind of a backward story. But even the story today that he might be wrapped up in a domestic violence case, because it was reported yesterday that it allegedly was his girlfriend's apartment.
I mean, yeah, it's just the details are piling on now. That what makes it so crazy is that he came up with an elaborate little lie to say why he hurt himself. I don't know why he couldn't just say he fell down the stairs. I mean, that's a pretty easier thing to cover up than, I jumped out of a 2-story window and saved a drowning child. I don't know why you would, if you were going to lie, you make it that elaborate. But I mean, it's crazy with the domestic abuse, with domestic violence case that you mentioned. And I mean, what's also crazy is the fact that Steve Sarkisian, who was forced to defend his players, saying that it's great what he did, he's a hero, blah blah blah, when the report first came out. But now with Shaw on suspended for indefinitely, also with the injury, Sarkisian did not rule out the possibility that he can be back this season.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he wants to see what he actually did. If somehow all of this is kind of fabricated on what he actually did, and it ends up coming out that, he ended up, just like dropping something on his feet, or was he missing curfew? Is that why he lied? And if it's something smaller, then he can get suspended for a couple games and then come back. But if it's anything to do with the LAPD and kind of like what they're investigating him for now, I doubt that he'd be back at all if he did any wrongdoing legally.
Yeah, I mean, the quote from Sarkisian was, potentially, sure. Obviously, there are some other things that have to take place. In the meantime, he's got to take care of his health and take care of himself. And when the time's right, if the time's right to bring him back, we will. So there are still a lot of things unraveling as investigations are going on and stuff like that. Shaw's lawyer, Donald Etra, says that there was no criminal actions done by Shaw whatsoever. However, the lawyer does admit that the injury Shaw sustained did happen at the alleged apartment. So right now, Shaw is backed into a corner because now everything he says is going to be constituted as whether or not he's telling the truth because, I mean, the boy cried wolf, the boy lied, and now no one's going to trust him because he got called out on it. So I'm really interested to see where this goes.
Yeah, no one's going to trust anything that this guy says now because he grabbed everyone out of the heart and pulled everyone's heart out of their bodies after because everyone was so on this story on Monday saying, oh, what a great thing this guy did, blah, blah, blah. And now all of a sudden everyone hates him now because he created this lie. But I knew it was bad because once they were questioning if the story was authentic and they said that he lied, I really would be surprised if he didn't do anything wrong because whatever he did, he didn't feel comfortable going to a coach. He didn't feel comfortable saying what happened to one of his boys, one of the fellow players on the team. Because think about it this way: you know how many personnel is on a football team between coaches and advisors and players? He wasn't comfortable saying this to anybody.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I'm sure a couple of players know what the deal is. Who knows if he was actually with one of the players when some of this stuff has happened? But I'm saying I knew it was bad when they said that he lied, and because he really was probably trying to hide something that he wasn't supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and the biggest plot hole to me was who leaves a 7-year-old child near a pool unattended? What parent would do that? That was a big thing for me. That's just not plausible in my mind that a parent would do that.
Exactly, because in his story, he said that no one was around, and that's when he jumped from the balcony to save his 7-year-old nephew. So he said nobody was around. It was just his nephew in the pool, and he jumped from the balcony and saved his nephew. So even that just kind of sounds fishy without even any outside wrongdoing. That sounds like a fishy story because where was everybody?
Yeah, and now to pile on some more of USC's public relations problems, Coach Sarkisian was accused of being a racist by former USC tailback Anthony Brown. Brown said Sarkisian is a racist man who treated me like a slave in his office. These accusations were made on Instagram, and then they were promptly deleted. So this just adds more problems onto USC PR staff. Now, granted, both players and both current players and former players have come to the defense of Sarkisian, saying that's simply not true. Sarkisian has denied all remarks. But this just happens a couple days after this whole story unfolds with Shaw. It's just not good timing at all for the Trojans.
Yeah, I mean, it's a story right now, but I don't think that it's going to come to anything because there were so many people to back up this coach. There wasn't one player that agreed with this guy. And let's face it, this player was the 6th running back on the depth chart. He wasn't a star player. He wasn't getting much playing time. He was always injured. And it seems kind of funny to me that when he decides to not be on the team anymore, he starts pointing fingers at the coach. So that's all I'm saying. It's not like it's a prominent player saying this. This guy was obviously angry at the coach. I'm not saying, I hope that he's wrong, and I hope he's not a racist, but it just kind of seems that this player has a grudge against his coach for not necessarily giving him minutes that he might have thought he deserved.
Yeah, and, it didn't bother USC as they played very well in Week 1. They got a 52-13 win over Fresno State at home. They scored 21 points alone in both the first and the third quarter. So they routed Fresno State. So obviously it was not a distraction to the team. But I'm interested to see where the Shaw story goes, because if it is reported that he's in some domestic abuse case, like you mentioned, it being his girlfriend's apartment or something like that, I'm really curious to see what Sarkisian's actions will be, as well with the university, because Shaw put them in a really, really tight spot.
Yeah, it does. And look, at least for me, if you have, it's one thing to, like I said, to miss a curfew or to even like skip a class, something academic, something that you can keep confined in the school of USC. But if you have the LAPD looking at you and you did something wrong outside of the school, where now the school can't contain it, that's where I think the longer suspension happens. You know what I mean? So it's one thing, who knows? He might get arrested. If this guy gets arrested,
yeah.
I'm not saying he's going to serve time necessarily, but if he gets arrested, it's going to be hard for a first-year head coach at USC to stick up for his player for doing this. It's a first-year head coach here. He wants to prove that he belongs at a school like USC. He might try to make an example out of Shaw more than anything.
Yeah, and I frankly think he should, because this is it's a lie that he told. I'm not going to lie. I bought into it. I retweeted the story. When I saw it, I was like, this is a great story. I bought into it. I fell into the trap, and then I was put in my place when all the true stuff came out, and I acknowledge that I bought in. But, I mean, it's a crazy thing that's happening, and I think USC as an institution is going to have a lot to say as to whether or not he's back on the program, and I don't think they're going to allow him to be back this year, me personally, with everything that's going on and everything they're dealing with now.
Well, they certainly look pretty good without him. They looked pretty good without him this weekend.
Yeah, they looked all right. Now, you just mentioned something academic that the university can handle, and that's a perfect segue into our next topic. The University of Notre Dame's academic probe happened, I think it's about maybe a week or so ago, maybe a couple weeks, so we're literally on the story, but the details are still developing. 5 Fighting Irish football players have been dismissed from the football program in regards to academic fraud, and it's an investigation currently going on with the school. Head coach Brian Kelly does not have any part in this investigation as part of like finding out the players and stuff like that. He's just dealing with the consequences. But 5 Fighting Irish football players suspended, and there may be more to come. Mike, what's your reaction to this?
It's sad. I guess we should preface this saying that the 2 people who are doing the podcast cannot stand Notre Dame. So, so I guess if you're looking for sympathy about Notre Dame, you might not get it on the Strictly Business podcast. But, it's sad. I will say this. First of all, Everett Golston, the now quarterback of Notre Dame, he missed all last season after being caught cheating on a test last year. So this isn't the first time that Notre Dame's kind of been hit with this type of scandal. It was announced, like you said, it was announced on Thursday that I think backup safety, I think Hardy is the guy's last name.
Yep, exactly.
Will be the fifth guy to. I don't think they're just dismissed from the team. I just think they're held out of practice. They're going to held out of practice and competition as I guess they inquire about the school's academic scandal. So they're not really dismissed from the team. I think they're held out of practice because they really didn't get hit with any wrongdoing yet. But I will say this. As much as I hate Notre Dame, at least they're showing that they value academics over athletics.
Exactly.
And what I'm saying is that how many schools, we don't know how many schools try to hide stuff like this, especially in these big-time football programs where football is everything. In some places, like Texas, the college football team is more important than the professional football team. So you really don't know how much sketchy stuff is going on in the athletic department. So at least Notre Dame is showing that, look, even our prominent football program isn't above what we're trying to do for the University of Notre Dame. So I actually give them credit for kind of coming down on the players.
Yeah, I think it's great that the president of Notre Dame, John Jenkins, stated that he was initially notified of the situation at the end of the summer session, the past summer session. It was referred to the compliance office on July 29th, and the investigation went on from there. So, I mean, it's interesting to me because the president says the range of punishments for this type of violation can be an F on the assignment, an F on the course, or dismissal from the school. Now, the question to me is how many people are involved in this academic fraud? How many people are having papers written for them and stuff like that? Because I think the higher the number, the less likely it's going to be dismissal from the school. Well, there's already 5 football players from a pretty prominent football program. I don't think dismissal from the school is going to happen. So I'm curious to see what the punishment is going to be. What do you think it should be?
Well, they're clearly not going to play football again. I think that's going to be that's probably going to be one of their things, at least 2. Maybe they get suspended from the team to get their grades up, or do try to make up the credits. That I don't know if they're going to take the credits away from the classes that they had these papers in, or the classes that they cheated on.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it really could be a lot of things. We know the NCAA is kind of it's kind of a shot out of the dark about what they're going to do, because they take it each problem at a time. So it's really they're really not consistent with their punishment. So yeah, it really could be anything. But what I'm trying to figure out is Brian Kelly going to maintain his job as the head coach of the team?
That's a very good point. Yeah, that's a very good point, because it's the second time, as you mentioned, that this has happened. And Notre Dame, I think, is expected not to compete for the college playoff this year by any means. They have a fairly tough schedule, and many people are only seeing 8 to 9 wins for them this year, which is not going to be nearly enough. So I mean, the big thing for me is I don't think this is happening just at Notre Dame throughout the country. I think it's happening at other places, whether the other places know it or not. But I think for it to be at a primarily academic institution is really big, because in the institution itself has put education before athletics, and that doesn't happen very often at all when it's a big Division I program. So I'm with you in giving credit to the Irish. But my question is, say they take the credits away. These players are on scholarship. They're there for 4 years. They're pretty much paid for. Are they going to make them pay for that, for the semester of the credits that they missed? Like, I'm curious to see the consequences of that, if that's going to happen.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I mean, I don't know how we can gauge on what's going to happen. I think we have to figure out how many players it is, kind of like you said, because it's only 5. It'll be easy to kind of maintain and come down on a punishment. But if it comes out that it's, double-digit guys, there's 15, 20 guys that are in this, it's going to be a little harder. And I think the more people that it is on this team, I think it's less likely Brian Kelly is going to come back as a coach. The more players there are, I think the more trouble that Brian Kelly is going to get in, because it's going to be hard to play, Mickey Pajope and say, I wasn't in charge of that. I don't know. You're the head football coach. You really got to stay on top of your players. And I understand that there's people below you that deal with, the academics of your students, but, the head coach is going to be the scapegoat for players who are in the wrong.
Yeah, I think I heard Colin Cowherd talking about this on ESPN Radio, and he made the point that a football coach is different from, say, a volleyball or basketball coach, because on that roster you have maybe 15 players, but on a football roster you have over 50, and it's hard to keep track of over 50 players and their academic stuff like that. Where on a volleyball team or softball, it's easier to keep a hands-on approach. So Cowherd kind of defended Kelly a little bit in that aspect, saying, listen, you can't hold Brian Kelly accountable. But I'm kind of with you. I think there's a lot more benefits that come with being a head football coach in a prominent program that gets national attention everywhere. But with that comes also more responsibility to make sure that everyone's in line. And I'm with you that Brian Kelly so far has not done a great job of doing that, especially the past few years with Golston and now these 5 players. So I'm curious to see, and I'm curious to see how well they perform this year because I also think that'll have a big dictation as to whether or not Kelly plays. Because I think if it's an 8-win season, I think Kelly might be on the hot seat just for the way Notre Dame played, regardless of this academic probation.
That's a great point. And the one thing I would say is I would definitely agree with you about, I guess, football players versus basketball players. Obviously, there's way less players. But the one thing I would say is if you are the coach of Notre Dame, where academics are really valued more than, say, a state school, I think that's where Brian Kelly is going to get wrapped up because he might get away with this at a bigger football program, football where football is way more, valued than academics, like a Texas or
Alabama,
really anywhere else. But not here, not at Notre Dame. And I think they want to kind of prove that, look, even the Notre Dame football team isn't bigger than what we're trying to do here at Notre Dame for our students. So, like I said, the more players that are going to get wrapped up in this, I think the more problems that Brian Kelly is going to face. And you're right. Have you seen their schedule? Their schedule isn't easy this year. Unlike previous years, they're actually playing teams this year, and it's gonna be a hard season. Despite all of the noise that's happening on off the field, on the field isn't going to be easy either. So they're not going to play Rice every week. It's going to be a tough season for them. So they're going to get a couple L's on their schedule. So with the so-so season that it looks like that they're going to have, plus this academic scandal, it's going to be tough for Brian Kelly to keep the job.
Yeah, let's take a quick look at Notre Dame's schedule. They beat Rice pretty easily, 48-17 week 1. But then they play Michigan, Purdue, Syracuse, all games that they can win because Michigan's down this year, same with Purdue, and Syracuse, not a very good football team. But then they play Stanford, North Carolina, Florida State, Navy, Arizona State, Northwestern, Louisville, USC. Those last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 games, I could see Notre Dame losing. Those are games that Notre Dame could possibly lose, those last 8 games. It's going to be a really tough season for them.
Yeah, it's going to be real tough because, Stanford obviously is a very tough game. North Carolina has proved that they can win games in the ACC. Florida State, one of the best college football teams in the country. Obviously, winners last year, very good this year, and we'll get into that later. At Navy, still an away game, and then they have to go. So they're playing 3 straight road games at Florida State, at Navy, at Arizona State. When they get to Arizona State, they're going to be tired as can be. Then they finally play a Northwestern team who can play a little bit, and then they go and then Louisville's playing Miami right now, and they're playing pretty well so far tonight, so they're pretty good. And obviously USC, like we said, they're a pretty good football team. So at the very least, I see Notre Dame with 4 losses, and I think it's being generous.
Yeah, I think so too. And don't forget, Navy gave Ohio State a game in week 1. They had Urban Meyer a little bit nervous. So don't sleep on Navy either. That triple option is deadly.
I do want to get into one more thing before we cut off, is when we talked about handling football versus basketball, because there's another thing that we haven't really talked about, and it was the UNC situation, University of North Carolina basketball, because this is one thing that I think with Notre Dame handling it right now, it's kind of erasing or stopping, preventing is the word. It's preventing what UNC is going through right now, and that's Rashad McCants, the former, unfortunately, national champion of North Carolina when they won in 2005, basketball player who had obviously had some really, really tough comments about his academic history at UNC and how he was treated, and now they are looking into it. So I think one thing that Notre Dame is preventing is somebody talking about their academic history at Notre Dame. You know what I mean? So at least for this, I think Notre Dame's handling it fine because they see what's happening for North Carolina right now that not only has to do with the North Carolina National Championship team in 2005, which if they really want to look into, those wins can get vacated, and it's also football players from that time as well. So North Carolina is really going through something tough right now, and that's one thing Notre Dame is trying to prevent.
Yeah, I mean, just to recap what McCants said, he said that he had papers written for him and that there were no-show classes that helped keep him eligible. There were classes that were supposed to meet maybe once every 2 weeks. The professor would just cancel a class and everyone would just get an A. That's what he means by no-show. So, granted, I don't think Notre Dame is dealing with that big of a thing, no-show classes, because I don't think Notre Dame professors would do that. I think that institution too fine academically to stoop to that level. Not saying North Carolina's not a good school, but I'm saying Notre Dame is a step above them. So, I mean, it's a great point that's kind of overshadowing what's going on with North Carolina. And I'm wondering that if the investigations will kind of merge into something that the NCAA will look to maybe create punishments for on a uniform level of this academic fraud.
Yeah, because the more this stuff happens, I think it's getting pretty bad. It really is getting pretty bad because people are trying to do anything to win nowadays, and the NCAA really needs to kind of show uniformity in this because more and more schools are coming out and doing this, and it really is a problem, obviously, with these big name schools like North Carolina and Notre Dame who bring in such a revenue for TV revenue and all the money that goes into their athletic department and every team, and that's when they really, the NCAA really cares because they don't want any money getting pulled from their pocket when it comes to from the TV revenue side.
That is incredibly true. So a lot of things going on in college football. We will get into a little bit later our highlights from week one of college football, but that opening segment, Josh Shaw is in a little bit of trouble along with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish football team. So both Notre Dame and USC performed well on the field. But before we get to our college football highlights, it's time for our annual segment, the Duds of the Week. And Mike Ritz, I'll let you take this one first because mine segues pretty easily into our next topic. So Ritz, you take it away.
All right. Well, unfortunately, my dud of the week is a fellow New York Giant, and it is Odell Beckham Jr., the Giants' first-round draft pick, 12th overall. Had a lot of kind of buzz going in when the Giants picked him up, and it was announced this week that he could miss up to 3 weeks of the regular season, and that's unfortunate because this guy was supposed to be create instant offense for us. He missed the June minicamp with a hamstring injury. He comes back, returns to practice on a limited basis a couple weeks later. He aggravates it again. He hasn't practiced since August 18th. And now I'm worried because not only is he out, but now it's who's going to play. Obviously, we have Victor Cruz. We have Ruben Randall, who is good in the red zone, but he lacks. I really think he lacks when he's outside the red zone. And then who's going to be our third receiver? That's one thing. Right now, our outside wide receiver spot's probably going to be Jarrell Jernigan, which, I mean, because it's kind of, it has to be him because who else would it be? It can't be the undrafted rookie that we got, Corey Washington, and then this other guy, Preston Parker, who didn't even play a snap last year.
Yeah,
he was on the Saints practice team last year. So Odell Beckham Jr. needs to get healthy. I guess you really can't blame him for getting hurt, but this is definitely not the start that the Giants saw Odell Beckham Jr. having when we drafted him. So that's my third of the week. It says he can miss up to 3 weeks. So that's my thing. He's going to try to come back week 4. He didn't even play a single game in the preseason. He still has to get used to this brand new offense that unfortunately nobody on the Giants starting offensive team looks like they got used to the offense yet. So even if he's healthy going into week 4, who says he's going to get the counts right? Who says he's going to know any of the plays when he's healthy? So it's really just a tough situation for him. So Odell Beckham Jr. is my dud of the week.
That's a good one. And just to summarize that, Odell Beckham Jr. quote from Dan Graziano article on ESPN.com, I just keep re-aggravating it in terms of his injury. Right now, I'm just going to take it day by day. I don't set any limits for myself. So we'll see what happens. I think for your sake, we need him to help that Giant offense, which has looked fairly unimpressive in the preseason. And they go up against the Detroit Lions on Monday Night Football week 1. So that anemic offense will be on the spotlight for all national audiences to see in the opening week of the NFL.
Great.
So moving on, my dud of the week is Steve Spurrier, head coach for the South Carolina Gamecocks. And I guess you could kind of say it's just a Gamecocks team overall. This is a perfect segue into our next topic, which is going to be our impressions from the first weekend of college football, our three big games. And our first big game is the Texas A&M thrashing of South Carolina. The Aggies defeated the Gamecocks 52-28 in South Carolina. The Gamecocks allowed the most passing yards ever in a game under Steve Spurrier. And Spurrier, after the game, was quoted, "This team was just so much better than us, it wasn't funny. They outcoached us, outplayed us, and they were better prepared, and they know what they were doing." And this just boggles my mind. Some of these stats that ESPN Stats and Info, a great Twitter follow. Me and Mike both agree on that.
Without a doubt.
Great Twitter follow. They have, before the game, under Spurrier, the Gamecocks allowed only 7.1 points per game in the first game of season openers. So at 7.1 points per game in the first half of season openers under Steve Spurrier. They allowed 31 points in the first half against Texas A&M. That's how you know your defense is not working. And then another stat, only 3 teams have ever scored more points against Steve Spurrier. All 3 of those teams went on to win the national title. So that speaks very well for Texas A&M, but it speaks very bad for South Carolina. They dropped a ton in my personal top 25 college rankings, which are going out on my blog later. Actually, no, they went out today. But I think they're going to drop massively in the national rankings. I think they'll be around 20, 21, 22, 23. I think they're going to drop pretty heavily there. And that just boggles my mind how outplayed they were that opening week. Credit goes to Kevin Sumlin for being an offensive guru, but also my start of the week is Steve Spurrier, the head coach of the Gamecocks, because his team came out flat and they could do nothing right, and they could not stop Texas A&M if their life depended on it.
Stats on stats on stats from Jon Stanko for his dud of the week. But, so like you said, so let's go into college football. The opening story for us that we both agree on is Texas A&M and how well they did play in South Carolina. So, yes, how bad South Carolina looked, but we can talk about how good A&M's offense looked. To me, it looks like the Browns should have hired Kevin Sumlin instead of drafting Johnny Manziel.
You're right. You're right.
But the big story here is the Texas A&M quarterback, Kenny Hill. Obviously, he is replacing Johnny Manziel. And how is he going to perform? Well, I'll tell you how he's going to perform. He broke Johnny Manziel's single-game passing record by throwing for 511 yards. Stanko, he threw 60 times. He completed 44 passes, and he connected with 12 different receivers for 3 touchdowns. This guy was unstoppable.
Yeah, he was out of this world. 44 for 60 passing. As you mentioned, 511 yards and 3 touchdowns. Had a couple scrambles in there as well. And he said his main concern was the press conference after the game. That's what he was most nervous about. He wasn't nervous about the game. He was most nervous about the press conference and speaking to the media, in which he made it known that he does not like the nickname Kenny Football. So that nickname will not stick, because that was trending on Twitter during the game. It will not stick.
Yeah, I saw that. He said that the A&M fans need to come up with something more clever.
Yeah, so, but I think what was trending on during this game that last Thursday was Johnny Who. Hashtag Johnny Who. How does Johnny Manziel feel now, knowing that people are saying maybe it wasn't Johnny Manziel that was so special, maybe it was Kevin Sumlin as the head coach that made Johnny Manziel so good. I think that puts a lot of shadow of doubt over Johnny Manziel in the NFL. He was playing a preseason game while this game was going on. But I think Kevin Sumlin comes out of this game looking like an absolute genius. The Aggies ran 99 offensive plays for 680 total yards. That's insane.
And like we said, this is against a team that was ranked in the top 10. You're going on into their place, on their home field, and doing that type of performance. Stanko, it raised the question, is A&M contenders for this new playoff system this year?
Listen, the SEC is so tough. And South Carolina, I think they're a good defense. I don't think they're great. I think that they kind of underestimated the presence of Jadeveon Clowney. Him not being there, I think they underestimated what that would do. Because I think last year he created so much attention, made their whole defense better. But I think they're a good defense. I want to see what Texas A&M will do against a very, very good defense like an LSU, like an Alabama, something like that. But if this is a litmus test, the SEC and the nation better watch out, because if Kenny Hill puts up 2/3 of the numbers that he put up against South Carolina, he's going to be a Heisman contender, and Texas A&M is going to be fantastic. And what I think is also most impressive, that Texas A&M was one of the worst defensive teams last year. Johnny Manziel had to score 40 points a game to win. They held South Carolina, which is a pretty good offense, to only 28 points, and a couple of those points came in garbage time when the game was already out of hand. So I think also credit's got to go to the Texas A&M defense for showing up and playing pretty well. If this Texas A&M team has a defense to go along with that dynamic of an offense, this nation better watch out because they are very, very good.
Yeah, it just makes the SEC that much tougher because obviously going in, no one really thought about A&M doing that much damage and creating this much of a buzz after week one. Granted, we should see what's going to happen next week, but I mean, if this is any sign of what A&M is going to be, you really, really got to watch out because they are certainly a team that's going to be tough to beat.
Yeah, looking at their schedule, next week they have Lamar, and then they have Rice, and then they're at SMU. So not three games that aren't really tests, if you will, to their
You know that they put up 52 points on South Carolina. What are they going to do to Lamar?
I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I don't. I don't know what the line's going to be that game. Over, under, I mean, what's the line going to be? 45
The line's probably going to be 40.
I mean, yeah, it's nuts. But I think the test will come starting September 27th when they host Arkansas, and then they're at Mississippi State. Then they have Ole Miss and then Alabama. So then they get into the meat of the SEC, and they end their season at Auburn and then playing Missouri and LSU. So they end their season with 3 tough games.
Oh man, that is such a tough end of the schedule. I'll tell you what though, if A&M has one of these types of special seasons, I'm not even saying even if they don't make it to the Final Four, I guess we'll call it. Kevin Sumlin, he got NFL looks. Like I said, he got to look at the Browns head coaching job this past year. Let's see if he stays at A&M a little longer or if he makes a jump to the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, he seems like an offensive guru and a quarterback whisperer. So he seems to have figured himself a little niche there at Texas A&M. Seems to be doing quite well. But let's move on to our second highlighted game. It features number 1 ranked Florida State, who was in prime time on ABC against Oklahoma State. And this game was a lot closer than people thought. Florida State only comes out with a 6-point win, 37-31. I mean, the Cowboys gave them a pretty tough game.
Yeah, they did give them a tough game. It must have been the place that they played in. The Cowboys were playing in the Dallas Cowboys Stadium.
That's right, Jerry Jones' house. Yep.
But Jameis Winston, he looked off in the first half. I just think Oklahoma State really threw a different type of defense that I guess Jameis Winston's used to, a lot of protection. It looked like they gave him a lot more time than I thought they were going to. They didn't rush him that much. They had him sit back and actually kind of make a decision on where to throw it. And it worked. Jameis Winston threw 2 interceptions. Like I said, he looked lost in the first half. But when push came to shove, Florida State really made plays on offense. My main concern is their defense. Last year, they were 3rd in total defense at the end of the year when they won the national championship. 3rd in total defense. They give up 31. Oklahoma State puts 31 points on them. So I'm not really worried about Florida State's offense. I'm more worried about their defense. Because Oklahoma State's putting up 31 points. How are other teams going to perform?
Yeah, and you got to look 161 rushing yards for the Cowboys as well. So they were pretty dominant on the ground throughout the game, averaging nearly 4 yards a carry. Well, I think Jameis Winston, I agree with you. He didn't play that well. He really didn't. He passed 40 times, 25 for 40. That's 370 yards. That's a lot of yards, but 2 interceptions. But 203 of his 370 yards went to one receiver, Rashad Green, who's returning from last year. 203 yards went to one guy. If Florida State wants to be successful the rest of the season, they're going to have to spread that wealth out because because if you got to get the good defense with the good secondary who's just going to key in on that one guy, Jameis Winston's not going to have anyone to throw the ball to. So I think that's another area of concern for the Seminoles.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, he obviously 203 yards is phenomenal for one receiver. But did you see Jameis Winston's run?
Oh, my God.
Run was so nice. It really looked like a play out of Madden. So, he jumped over his own guy. It was his own guy, correct?
Yeah. Did you see the guy duck down because you saw him jumping over him?
Yeah, he was about to. The guy on offense was about to stand up, saw him duck down, and then Jameis Winston hit the next guy with an okey doke, hit left trigger, went left, and he was out.
Yeah, it reminded me more of NFL Street because the moves were just so quick that it was just like and he was just gone into the end zone. 28-yard run. It was not number one on ESPN Top 10, and I was very surprised. I thought ESPN would have been into the social media hype and made it number one, but they didn't. I think it was number 5 or 6. But still, an unbelievable run. That was a highlight of the game for him. Really was. Yeah. But then on the next drive, J.W. Walsh from Oklahoma State has his own little scramble and runs into the end zone and answers Florida State's touchdown with one of his own. So I was impressed with J.W. Walsh, a quarterback for Oklahoma State. I thought he did pretty well leading his team against what was supposed to be a very good defense. And listen, the Cowboys were 19-point underdogs. They only lose by 6 on a giant stage to the number 1 ranked team defending champions. I think Oklahoma State kind of come out of that game. Sure, disappointed they didn't win, but pretty happy with the way their team played and how that looks for the rest of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to touch on Florida State's wide receivers, it was announced that one of their wide receivers, Bobo Wilson, he had an indefinite suspension, but it was just lifted, so he'll be able to play next game. He got wrapped up in the summer for a couple misdemeanors, so now he is now eligible to play. I think it was a theft of a scooter, and so now he can play. He was a freshman last year, only had 3 receptions, but they say he's supposed to get more time this year, so maybe with at least Bobo Wilson able to play, that might open up for another receiver. So who knows how that lift suspension will benefit Jameis Winston, but you got to figure any wide receiver that can get on the field is going to benefit Jameis Winston.
Yeah, and Florida State next week, they are able to solve all their problems because they host Citadel, so that will be okay. And then they host Clemson, who's ranked 16th, but they lost week 1, so they will drop. And then they really kind of have a fairly easy schedule, I guess you could say. I mean, it's the ACC. They're not a strong football conference right now. So we'll see what happens with Florida State. Some question marks were raised. I'm curious to see if they'll be number 1 in the new coaches poll because teams like Oregon looked really, really good, and Georgia was incredibly impressive as well. So I'm curious to see where they land. I think they'll still retain number 1, but I think more question marks were raised than answers were given for the Seminoles.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the difference with Florida State now is last year everyone was talking about Alabama. Everyone was talking about Auburn. And Georgia was very good. And you had all these teams that were kind of fighting in the SEC. And then all of a sudden, kind of Florida State came out of nowhere towards the end of the season, and then they were getting talked about. Now, they were preseason number 1, Jameis Winston, Heisman Trophy winner. So the target's on their back. They are known now. They are on the schedule for these teams, and they are the team to beat, and everyone's looking at them. So I think that's kind of the difference. Their mindset's a little different. They're not that hungry, we'll show them type of team this year like they were last year because they weren't really getting respected as much because no one really thought they were an ACC team. They didn't play in the SEC. They didn't play as good of a schedule, so no one really thought that Florida State would be as good as they were to win the national championship last year. So now that their target is on their back this year, and people know about Jameis Winston and people know about Jimbo Fisher and his squad, let's see how they're gonna kind of counteract these teams coming at them even harder now.
Yeah, it's a completely different mindset for them this season. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. Though I think they'll take care of business against Citadel. I think we can bank on that.
It's safe to say they might squeak one out against Citadel.
Yeah, they might do that. But our third and our final highlight game for college football, for me, was the best game of Saturday. It was number 13 LSU defeating number 14 Wisconsin 28-24. LSU had to come back from down 17 points to win this game, but they were able to pull it out due to the gutsiness of Les Miles. But for me, this was the best game this Saturday. I don't know about you, but it was goddamn entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, by far, I think this was the most entertaining game. It was the closest game. Wisconsin, I think it was 24-7 at one point.
Exactly.
They were up, and they were moving the ball. They were just doing everything they wanted against Les Miles' squad. But to me, it just proves how much quicker SEC teams are over Big Ten teams. LSU was just on a roll after. I think it was midway through the third quarter is when they really started to get going. And I think the biggest play was, I think LSU was down. They might have been down 11, and they converted a 3rd and 21 from the Wisconsin 36-yard line. And I think it was the guy D'Arcy. I think that's how you say it.
Yep.
The wide receiver. It was just kind of a dump-off pass, and he broke 3 tackles and high-stepped a 4th guy to get into the end zone. I think that was really the turning point. It was, like I said, midway through the third quarter. They get in the end zone there. They convert the 2-point conversion, and all of a sudden it's a 3-point game. And I think from there, I don't think Wisconsin really had an answer. 3rd and 21 on Wisconsin's 36-yard line, and LSU came up with a score there.
Yeah, LSU played terrible in the first half. They only had 136 offensive yards in the first half, 80 of those coming on one big touchdown play. So if you think about it, they only had 56 yards the rest of the half besides that one play, which is atrocious for LSU and Les Miles. However, the team finishes with 369 yards, so they figured out their problem in the second half. And the game turned around on a Les Miles fake punt. Of course it does. Because Les Miles, the Mad Hatter, turns it around with that. And listen, that's one of the reasons I love Les Miles, because he coaches like you play Madden. That's the way I describe him. You know what? I'm not going to punt it. I'm going to go for it. It's 4th and 20. Screw it. We're going to make it happen. Then he makes it happen somehow. I'm going to trivia question for you. What is Les Miles' record when trailing in the fourth quarter?
Les Miles' record.
In his entire career.
Is his record with being down in the fourth quarter?
Being down in the fourth quarter.
Wow. I don't even know.
He is 22-21 in his career when trailing in the fourth quarter. Think about that. More than half the time the team is trailing in the fourth quarter, he comes back and wins.
That's fantastic.
That's remarkable.
That's fantastic. And also, just a little tidbit with Les Miles, because I'm sure he had something to do with this. LSU was penalized for leaving the locker room after halftime late. So they were penalized for not coming out on time. And I'm sure Les Miles had something to do with it by getting in their team's ear after a lackluster performance in the first half.
Yeah. And now LSU extends their non-conference winning streak to 46 games, which is a record right now. So I mean, LSU, I think they're a team that's pretty dangerous. I think people are kind of sleeping on them a little bit in the SEC. But what's also interesting is for Wisconsin, running back Melvin Gordon played pretty well in the first half, and he opened up the second half with a 63-yard run that ended up being Wisconsin's final score. But for the rest of the game, Gordon only received 2 more carries. And this was a guy who was kind of a figure of their offense in the first half. I believe he had 13 carries in the first half, but he only had 3 in the second half. And Wisconsin head coach Gary Anderson said Gordon had a scenario at halftime that made it doubtful whether the star tailback could return to the game. He did not. This is from ESPN. ESPN then goes on. He did not elaborate, and Gordon did come back late in the game to provide pass protection. And then after the game, Gordon was asked if he tweaked anything or was injured, and Gordon responded, "Nah, I was good, man. All good." So I just think it's interesting that your starting running back, who starts off the second half with a dynamic touchdown run, only gets 2 more carries in very limited minutes the rest of the game. I'm curious to know what happened at halftime that made that happen.
That's a great point. It's a great point, and obviously people are going to be questioning that, especially after a loss like Wisconsin had. That is that's a fantastic point, and I'm sure it will be discussed for this week because that was a tough loss at home for Wisconsin.
Yeah, Wisconsin, they can't win the big game in both college basketball and college football. They just can't win the big game.
Too soon.
All right, but now it's time to get to the podcast where I get to relax and Ritz gets to exercise his vocal cords. It's time for Ritz's ramble.
All right, well, I've been kind of holding this in because I don't know how people, I guess, react to certain things like this, but is anybody else bothered about the settlement the NFL just had with these guys that were suing the NFL over these concussions? I mean, I'll just throw numbers at you first. $675 million was the settlement for players with these neurological systems with problems with whether it's Lou Gehrig's disease or, God forbid, Parkinson's or any of these bad diseases that happen later on in life. And obviously, football might have added on to that with their head-to-head collisions, their tackles, and all of that. An additional $112 million went to the players' lawyers. So, if my math is correct, the total payout's about $870 million. $870 million goes to these players. They sue the NFL for getting hurt in a game that's physical. That's like me suing Marlboro cigarettes for getting lung cancer. It's like these guys are all of a sudden conveniently dumb. It's like when they got hurt and they hit their head and they sit on the bench and the trainers are looking at him and the guy's dizzy as can be. He can't see. But you know what? He waited all week for this game. Maybe it's his contract year and he needs to go prove himself to get more money. So he says, you know what? Through you, I'm going to go out there and play. And then he goes back 5 years later and wonders why he had head problems. I mean, to me, I just have such a problem with it because I just can't shake the feeling that these guys are just trying to squeeze out any more money that they can get out of the NFL because, let's face it, a lot of these guys, especially in the NFL, they don't know what to do with their money. Not that they're dumb. I'm just saying that the shelf life of an NFL player isn't as long as a baseball player, a basketball player, even a hockey player. They don't have a high shelf life, so I just can't shake the feeling that they're just trying to squeeze more money out of these guys. And I feel bad for these guys. Unfortunately, like Junior Seau, he had a problem. A lot of these guys have problems. They end up getting these diseases. They end up getting hurt. Obviously you're going to have knee problems if you're an offensive lineman. Like you're on your knees 100% of the time in the NFL, and you keep pushing and shoving. But to sue the league that made you to go back and sue them for getting hurt, I have a problem with it. It's like, you know, is Paul George going to sue the NBA, you know, for playing basketball? That's just one thing I can't shake. Are these guys who go and they're going to sue the NFL for laying out $870 million because now they're starting to see the repercussions of a sport that was always physical. Do you ever think maybe you might have gotten hurt in college and then you went into the NFL with an injury? Isn't that kind of your fault? I mean, were you expecting not to get hurt when you started to play football? Did you not see any injuries that were happening? You know, did you ever get a concussion in high school? But all of a sudden now that you have these problems later on in life, then you're going to go back and see. I mean, Dan Marino, who is obviously one of the best quarterbacks ever. He immediately put his name in, and I had such a problem with it because I was like, out of anybody, it's Dan Marino who's gonna go out and be a vocal person to kind of get behind this. And then he immediately pulled himself out because he goes, I do not want to be a plaintiff here. And I think that's smart out of Dan Marino because I think he said, look, I don't have it that bad, and a lot of these guys don't either. And I think as much as it's bad for some players who God forbid end up with Lou Gehrig's disease or any other disease or head trauma that these guys have, I think a lot of people are kind of all these retired NFL players that just kind of sit on the couch with maybe have an ache in their leg or they maybe get headaches every now and then, or who are addicted to painkillers and now have a problem there.
Yeah.
I just think it's just the NFL to kind of see what money they can get. I just have a problem with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is I can understand why they're doing it because I do feel the NFL didn't educate the players as well as they could have early on. But I think part of that is the NFL didn't know the seriousness of it at the time. So I think those two things kind of counteract, and I think a player doesn't know the limits of his body when he's motivated. I mean, I could tell you that I've hurt myself playing pickup things, and I was playing basketball with you one time. I got a concussion, didn't even know it, and I continued playing for 2 hours. So it happens. But I think the big test is going to be, say, Wes Welker, who just got his third concussion in 10 months. If he comes out of the league and then sues the NFL about concussions, that's when the hammer drops, and I'm just like, you are absolutely nuts. Because people are saying you should leave, you're going to stay, and then you're going to raise hell after you leave, and you see there's a problem. So I don't know if the NFL can come up with a way to tell players, hey, listen, you've had too many concussions, you're too injured, you got to leave. But I think that the doctors are always going to have that upper hand saying, listen, we medically cleared them, they're medically cleared for this physical contact, you can't take their career away from them. So I think that's going to end up being an argument that's going to happen, I think, in maybe a year or two. The NFL dictating when players are too hurt to continue on versus doctors saying, hey, listen, we're the medical experts. We say they can go on, and the players signing with the doctor.
Yeah, and I think also, like, the problem that obviously former players are having now is that the trainers, the protocol for these concussions obviously wasn't as, I guess, severe, and they didn't go into it as much as they are now. There wasn't really a concussion protocol back then, but, you know your own body, you know what's going to happen. If something isn't right, you know. But the fact that you wanted to go out there and play, nobody was going to stop you. A lot of people talk about it now. When all these guys that are talking on game day, everyone's talking about, I'm playing no matter what, I'm playing no matter what. That's that mindset that going into that game. So if something is up with you, and you don't want to get it checked out, or you want to go out and make that next play, honestly, that's on you. Because even if you have trainers telling you, you know what, I don't think you should be doing this right now, and they go out and play anyway, that's when I have the problem. You have these guys trying to help you, and then all of a sudden you go out and play, and then you do further damage to yourself, and then you look for a paycheck later on in life. I don't think it's right.
Yeah, I listen, I agree with definitely some aspects of what you're saying. So, there you go, another edition of Ritz's Ramble, venting his frustration. So, Ritz, thank you very much for doing that and letting your opinion known. But now it's time for us to argue a little bit because I think we're going to get into some discussion here on our next topic. Me and Ritz are now going to predict our division standings. We're going to go through the league, go to each division, predict who's going to finish 1 through 4, or we can do 4 through 1, whichever one you think works best. Well, let's go right out there. Let's start in the AFC East. We're going to go through our division standings. We're going to start in the AFC East. Rich, you take it away. You start this off.
Whew. All right. I'm going to be honest. This was one of the harder ones for me, the AFC East. I think we'll go 4 through 1, Stanko. How about that?
Right,
I actually have the Miami Dolphins finishing last in this division. They do add Noshan Moreno, which I think is an underrated transaction between the Dolphins. Obviously, he had a lot of support that he had in Denver, and God knows what the Dolphins are going to try to do with him. It's not going to be nearly the help that he got in Denver. But I think the Dolphins are lost. I really don't think that they're doing they're going to be really anything. It's not necessarily how bad the Miami Dolphins are. I just think that the other 3 teams in the division are just better than them. It's simple as that.
Listen, I completely agree with you. I have the Miami Dolphins at 4. I frankly think they're going to have a really bad year. I don't think they're going to finish near 500 in my mind. I think they're clearly the worst team in this division. I agree with you. I think they're going to finish 4th. For me, finishing 3rd, I have the Buffalo Bills. I have them finishing 3rd. I think that Sammy Watkins is going to be a good offensive rookie. I think he's an offensive rookie of the year candidate. But I think this team is going to go as far as their defense goes, and I think their defense is that special. I think E.J. Manuel will take steps forward, but again, I think that these 2 teams I have above them are just better teams overall, and that's why I have the Bills finishing third and once again missing the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, although they play in the mecca of professional sports, Ralph Wilson Stadium, that really is a place where they really get behind their players when they're home. But I just don't think the talent's there right now. I think that EJ Manuel really is gonna just have a so-so year. I really don't see a lot from EJ Manuel, and let's see how CJ Spiller and Fred Jackson do. I always like to see kind of who the touches are going to get to. But like I said, I don't think they have enough on defense either to kind of put forth an effort to try to grab the top two spots in the division. I think the Bills are going to be third. And for my second place team in the division, I have the New York Jets. I have the Jets finishing second. I'm sure you're happy to hear that, Johnny Stank, because that means your team's going to place first, at least in my eyes. But I have the Jets finishing. I really wouldn't be surprised if they have another 8-8 season. I really don't think they're as bad as everyone's saying, and I think that a lot of people are going to be pleasantly surprised with a lot of the games that the Jets are going to play. I don't think Geno Smith looks lost out there at all. I think he had a pretty good preseason in my eyes. And with additions like Chris Johnson, let's see how they get Eric Decker the ball, because that's one thing they really need to work on. Obviously, their defense has always been their focal point, and any team that has a strong defense is going to stay in games, and Geno Smith is going to figure it out. So I really think the Jets are due for a pretty good year, and they're going to be fighting for the wild card spot all season long, and they have a shot again. I really do believe that. But for right now, I have them finishing second in the AFC.
I completely agree with you. I actually have in my grander scheme of predictions, I have the Jets in that sixth wild card spot.
Wow.
In the AFC, I have them going. To be specific, I have them going 9-7 and making the playoffs, squeezing in there. Listen, I agree with you. Geno Smith has looked good this preseason. He doesn't look lost, to steal your word. I think that the additions of Eric Decker and Chris Johnson will help. I don't think any of them have superstar years, but I think they're both upgrades to what the Jets had. Rex Ryan is still a defensive genius, and I think that he'll still have a top 10 defense easily. So I agree with you. I have them finishing second, but I don't know how you can't have the Patriots finishing first. They've dominated the division for so long. They made more improvements in the offseason. They was just announced Gronkowski is going to play week 1, which was the best part of my day when I heard that news. So I agree with you with the Jets at number 2, and I think we agree 1 through 4 here. We got Patriots, Jets, Bills, Dolphins. That's the order we're going with.
Yeah, and just to touch on it, I mean, I don't know how many people can see the Patriots not finishing first, because, I mean, let's forget the fact that they've won the AFC East 10 over the last 11 seasons, I think it is, going back to 2003. But look at the quarterbacks for these teams. EJ Manuel, Geno Smith, Ryan Tannehill, and Tom Brady. Those are the 4 quarterbacks in this division. And you're going to tell me that a team that's not the Patriots is going to win the division? Come on.
Come on. So there we go. We agree on the AFC East. Let's move to the AFC North. Who do you have finishing last in the AFC North?
Finishing last in the AFC North, sorry. In the AFC North, I have, sorry, Johnny Manziel, I have the Cleveland Browns finishing last in the AFC North. They just have too many problems. First of all, it was just a mess. Let's just forget about the off-the-field stuff. It's a mess with Johnny Manziel, Brian Hoyer, who's going to be the starting quarterback. I said in the last podcast that it's not going to matter because, to me, the Cleveland Browns are only a 5 or 6 win team, and they're going to finish last in this division. They're in a pretty tough division with 3 pretty good teams who can all finish above 500, and I just don't see the Browns doing really anything. I think it was announced that Josh Gordon's out for the year now, so their only viable asset isn't going to be on the field all season. Or Ben Tate, who has a bad history of injuries, is going to get a lot of touches, but if he can stay healthy, he is their only bright spot on this bad team. Their defense is bad. I just don't see the Browns finishing anywhere better than last place in the division.
I completely 100% agree with you. Their offense is going to be, I think, very, very hard to watch. Because people are just going to key on, in the passing game, they're going to key on Jordan Cameron, their tight end, and they know to stop Ben Tate. Those are the two weapons you only have to worry about with them. Brian Hoyer doesn't scare you with his throwing ability. And I think that the way, with Josh Gordon being out for a full year, it's going to force Johnny Manziel to come in faster this season because fans and the coaches are going to be so frustrated with how boring and predictable the offense is going to be that I think Johnny Manziel is going to have to come in and going to have to be that unpredictability spark plug for this offense come midway point of the season. But I agree with you. I think they're going to come in last.
Yeah, I think, like you said, I really think Manziel is going to play here at some point because, you know, what's going to happen week 7, week 8 when they have 2-3 wins and they're clearly out of it and they're going to need a spark. They need something to get people to keep coming to the games. Johnny Manziel is going to play this season, regardless of what anybody says, because the fact is they're going to be bad and they're going to want to be talked about in some way, and they know ESPN's going to cover anything Johnny Manziel does. So he's definitely going to get some time on the field towards the back end of the season when it is a lost cause for the Browns.
Yeah. So, Rich, who do you have finishing third in the AFC North?
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I went back and forth so much between these three teams, and I really think this is going to be a close division throughout. But I'm going to say the Baltimore Ravens are going to finish third because I think this whole thing, first of all, even when Ray Rice is healthy, I don't think he's not an every down back, and that lack of having an every down back is gonna hurt them. Flacco, he had his year, and last year, I really don't believe in the Ravens offense. I really don't. I think they've had better seasons. I think that their defense isn't as good as it's been, obviously, in the Ray Lewis years and the Ed Reed years. And I think it's going to show this year. And frankly, I just think that the two teams that we're going to get into after the Ravens are better teams. So I really think the Ravens are going to finish third here.
I agree with you. I expected you to put the Ravens higher than third, so I'm surprised we're in agreement here. But listen, I think this team's offense is not that strong. Granted, they did pick up Steve Smith in the offseason. So that's a pretty good pickup at wide receiver. It'll spell some of the coverage from Torrey Smith. But I don't believe in Joe Flacco. I haven't for a very long time. He played his best football ever in those playoffs, and he's done nothing. He's done nothing since to appease me. But I think this team is weak at running back because Bernard Pierce and Ray Rice, I'm sorry, those aren't names I consider good running backs for a tandem. You mentioned Ray Rice is out. He's on an every down back as well. And this defense is spotty. They showed last year, and I agree with you. I have the Baltimore Ravens finishing third. I'm surprised we agree there.
Yeah, I knew. Looking at that, I knew you'd be impressed by me. But yeah, Flacco, the best he's ever played was when he really needed to, because not only did he win the Super Bowl, but then he got that paycheck right after that. So the only time that Flacco really, really stepped up, and I really think it wasn't even Flacco, it was that bad Broncos secondary that got the Ravens where they needed to be. But anyway, yeah, I have, like you said, I mean, when Ray Rice comes back, he's not an every down back. Bernard Pierce is spotty. Their defense is spotty. And, yeah, I have them finishing third as well.
All right, so for me, finishing second in the North, I have the Cincinnati Bengals finishing second, which means I have Pittsburgh winning the AFC North. I personally believe the Bengals are going to take a step back this year. I think they kind of surprised people last year. I think Andy Dalton played really well last year at the quarterback position, obviously not in the playoffs. But I think the Bengals are going to take a step back. I'm incredibly surprised they cut the law firm, Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis. The dude doesn't fumble, and he doesn't seem to do anything egregiously poorly. He seems to do everything okay or good. He's not great at anything by any means except for holding on to the football. But for me, I think the Bengals are going to take a step back. I think the Steelers are going to improve. Granted, their preseason did not help my vote of confidence at all. But for me, I have Bengals finishing second and Pittsburgh at number one.
I mean, this is just getting redundant. I actually agree. I have the Bengals finishing second. And I'll tell you why. I might disagree with you a little bit saying the Bengals are going to take a step back, because I think the Bengals are going to are a playoff team, and I think they'll get the wild card spot. I think they'll be a wild card team because I feel like every year the Bengals are everyone's favorite kind of take a step back. You know what I mean? They went 9-7 in 2011, and then they got better the next year, 10-6, and they got better than last year. They went 11-5. They have the talent. They put their confidence in Andy Dalton, and I think they're going to have a pretty good year. And that's why I have them as a wild card team. But I have the Steelers winning the division, and I'll tell you why. In the season's first 7 weeks, the Steelers only play one team that finished with a winning record last year, and that was Carolina, who actually don't look as strong as they did last year. So, yes, I think the Steelers are going to be a better team, but also I'm playing the schedule a little bit. The first 7 weeks, they really don't play tough teams. So I think even with the suspensions early on in the year, I think they're going to be fine, and I have the Steelers winning the division.
Wow, dropping some knowledge there with the Pittsburgh Steelers schedule. Good points there. But all right, so we're in agreement again. We going from top to bottom. We got Steelers, Bengals, Ravens, Browns. I'm surprised we're in agreement there once again.
Me too.
Here.
Me too.
I think I have a pretty shocking AFC South. For me, at the bottom of the AFC South, I am finishing last is going to be the Tennessee Titans. I do not believe in Jake Locker one bit. I don't think he can stay healthy at all. They got rid of Chris Johnson. They got Ken Whisenhunt as head coach. But I don't think Jake Locker is going to fit into Whisenhunt's passing first offense. I think that they have talent on the outside. I just don't trust Locker to get the ball there consistently, and that's why I got them finishing last. It's that simple.
Well, I disagree with you, Stanko. I have the Jacksonville Jaguars finishing last. I think that they are getting better, but they're not going to be there. Blake Bortles is kind of a breath of fresh air. Let's see how many games he's going to start. But it's the Jaguars. There's so much wrong with this team. I think their bright spot right now is Toby Gerhart. He's played well in the preseason, but I really don't see the Jaguars doing much. But I think I kind of have a surprising one with my third place. It's not the Tennessee Titans. I have the Houston Texans finishing third in this division. I really do. I guess that's going to be my surprise of everything is having these Texans finish. I just really don't think that they're going to be that good. I don't think Arian Foster is the running back that everyone saw him out to be. I think he had one good year and he's kind of got set back with these injuries, and I don't think they're going to be that good. They got, obviously, Matt Schaub was a mess, so their quarterback situation has been a mess. Andre Johnson, honestly, to me, he's more of a name than anything else. So I really think that the Texans aren't going to be as good as advertised, and I have them finishing third.
I agree with you in having the Texans finish third. You have to have a quarterback to win games, a good quarterback, and they don't have one. I'm sorry. They just don't. Ryan Fitzpatrick is an interception-throwing machine. I agree with you. Arian Foster won't stay healthy the entire season. They'll have a great defense, but you got to score points to win games, and I don't think they'll do that consistently at all. But I think you have surmised that means that I have the Jacksonville Jaguars finishing second in the AFC South. I will have it say, not with a good record. I think this division has the biggest discrepancy between the first place team and everyone else. But I have the Jacksonville Jaguars in my predictions. I have them going 6-10. And you probably think I'm crazy, but I think that they're going to be better this year with Gerhart at running back, Marquise Lee at wide receiver. I think Blake Bortles is going to end up playing this year because he just looked so good in the preseason. That I think they're going to have to start him because I think he's going to separate himself from Chad Henne. So I have the Jacksonville Jaguars finishing second in front of the Houston Texans and Tennessee Titans.
All right. Well, wow. I am shocked, and I do not think that's going to happen. That'd be great for the Jaguars if that happened to end up finishing second with only a 6-10 record. But I just don't see it. But going back to me, that means I have the Tennessee Titans finishing second in the division, which, Jake Locker, before he got hurt, he got his team off to a 3-1 start last season before going down to an injury in Week 4, and that only loss was in overtime. And they weren't beating bad teams either. I mean, they weren't beating bad teams. They beat the Jets. They beat the Steelers. Two teams that ended up finishing 8-8, and the Chargers team that eventually that made the playoffs. So if Locker stays healthy, and if Locker stays healthy, then I think they can kind of sneak, can almost make a bid for a wild card spot. I don't think it's going to happen, but don't sleep on the Titans. They have enough there that can kind of make some noise. I think Kendall Wright is one of the most underrated wide receivers that nobody's talking about. If you look back, Kendall Wright has the talent. So I think that the Titans have enough around them that they can kind of make some noise in the division.
All right, so we are in complete disagreement here, except for the first place team, which is the Indianapolis Colts. I think it's pretty straightforward. They're easily the best team in this division, hands down, with the best quarterback and the best overall offense. So we both agree that the Colts are going to win this one. I think they can have this one clinched up by week 13 or 14. To be honest with you.
Yeah, without a doubt, I don't think this was too much of a rash decision. Andrew Luck is one of the better quarterbacks in the game. I think they're the most stable right now. It was they had a great run last year, and they're just going to try to prove themselves a little more this year. In 2 seasons since drafting Andrew Luck, the Colts have gone 11-5 twice, made the playoffs twice. So it kind of sounds about right that if history repeats itself, they might go 11-5 again and make the playoffs.
Yeah. So all right. So for myself, I have the Colts finishing number 1, the Jacksonville Jaguars finishing 2, Houston Texans 3, Tennessee Titans 4. For Rich, he flip-flops the Titans and the Jaguars. For his goes Colts, Titans, Texans, Jaguars. So we'll see who comes out on there. I admit that the South is my bold prediction in terms of team that'll rise up.
That is the definition of bold. That is the definition of bold.
Yes. Now we're going to go to a division that I thought was frankly the easiest to rank for me, especially in the AFC, the AFC West. Let's start in the basement, Rich. I'd be shocked if you don't have the Oakland Raiders finishing last in the West.
Yeah, you called it. I got the Oakland Raiders finishing dead last, and it's just an unfortunate occurrence for the Raiders every single year. They are so bad. Matt Schaub can't even get the start for the Raiders, as it was announced that David Carr is actually going to get the start for the Raiders in Week 1, and that's not really – congratulations, David Carr, for getting a start on a football team, but unfortunately that football team is the Oakland Raiders, where you're going to get no protection, you have no players, and it's just going to be another long season for the Raiders in a division that has 3 pretty good football teams in it that are just going to be beating up on you week after week. So, yeah, Oakland Raiders are going to be living in the basement yet again in the AFC West this season.
Completely agree with you. Finishing in third, for me, I have the San Diego Chargers. Listen, I think they're a good team, but I think they're just unlucky because they got 2 better teams ahead of them. I got them finishing third. I think that they'll maybe contend for a wild card. But I think that this team is good offensively. Defensively, I'm a little iffy on. But, you look at the running back depth chart for the Chargers. You got Donald Brown and Ryan Matthews and Danny Woodhead. 3 quality running backs. And you got Keenan Allen, Vincent Brown, and Malcolm Floyd at the wide receiver. So this team is talented. Offensively, defensively is going to where they need to pick it up.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that the Chargers are a bad team at all. I think as much as I dislike the guy, Philip Rivers has proved that he can get the yardage. He's a pretty good arm, and he knows how to get the most out of his receivers. And but unfortunately, with teams like the Chiefs and the Broncos, the Chargers kind of have to sit at 3 right now in the division. I don't think they have enough to kind of overtake Andy Reid and the Chiefs and obviously Peyton Manning and the Broncos. So for right now, I have the Chargers finishing third. And for my second place team, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. They are great. They've obviously shown they have a great defense. They have Jamal Charles can stay healthy. They can they can definitely make some noise in the division. But I think that the Denver Broncos have too much. They obviously Peyton Manning. They have one of the best defenses in the league. They showered even with Wes Welker's injury. They have Emmanuel Sanders. They have obviously Demaryius Thomas, Julius Thomas. They have all these receivers for Peyton. Monte Ball is supposed to really have a breakout year this season. So as good as the Chiefs are going to be with Alex Smith under his fresh new 4-year contract that they just signed this year for him, I think that the Chiefs are going to be pretty good, but they're not going to be as good as the Broncos. So I have Broncos, Chiefs, Chargers, Raiders for the AFC West.
We're in complete agreement. You can't pick against Peyton Manning. It's like a law. It's against. You'll go to jail if you pick against Peyton Manning winning the division. That's a matter of fact. Just Jamal Charles right now might be the best overall running back in the game, and I think Kansas City, they're going to be good. And I think their defense is going to be great. Can Alex Smith carry them to the promised land, or will he just be there to get them to the playoffs and not have enough of personal talent to get them over the hump? He's got to prove that contract somehow. We'll see if he does that. We are in complete agreement on the standing for the AFC West. And now it's time to switch conferences, so we get to your preference, if you will, because we're going to get to the NFC East. Rich, who do you have at the bottom of the NFC East?
At the bottom of the NFC East right now, I have the Washington Redskins, mainly on the fact that I don't believe in RG3. As bad as the Giants are, I really don't believe in the Redskins at all. I think that they are a mess from top to bottom, and it starts with RG3, and we talked about it last week. This dude is going to come out. Like I said, the first couple of weeks are going to be where the Redskins are going to be at their best, because that's going to be the most healthy RG3 is going to be. And I don't want to say stubbornness might get him, but RG3 is going to want to play 24/7, whether he's 100% or not. And, week 4, week 5, week 6, when he keeps getting these hits on him, he's not going to be as healthy, and that's when he's going to struggle. He's going to become even more one-dimensional that he has been since the injury, and they're going to lose some games. And I have the Redskins, at most, I have them going 7-9, but I have them going 6-10 and finishing last in the NFC.
I disagree with you. At the bottom, I have the Dallas Cowboys.
Wow.
This team does not have a defense. I don't know how to put it anywhere else. Anyway. They don't have a defense. They won't stop anybody. They're going to score points, but they're going to give up more points than they score. I think this is going to be the nail in Jason Garrett's coffin. I think Tony Romo, coming off injury, listen, he's a good quarterback, but he's going to take a lot of hits. But this team, you can't win games if you don't have any resemblance of a defense at all, and that's what the Cowboys have. That's why I have them finishing last. They're going to put up a ton of points, but every game they play is going to be a 42-35 shootout, and I don't think they're going to come out on top of many of them. I have them finishing last.
Wow, that is certainly a surprise, because unfortunately I have my New York Giants finishing third in this division. I have them finishing 7-9. It's not even a knock. I just think that I just don't think that we have enough. I don't think our defense is there. Our line is still bad. I'm not going to go out and say that the offense is going to be as bad as what we have seen. But I think it's still a transition period for a team that needs to win right now. I think Rashad Jennings has shown that he can play, obviously, and obviously with Odell Beckham Jr.'s injury, we are kind of not limited, but we can get stronger on the wide receiver end. But I still have them being 7-9, because let's face it, even when the Giants were at their best, they were always a 9-7 football team, and they would kind of sneak into the playoffs, whether it be a weak division or they snag the wild card spot. But unfortunately for me, this isn't as good a football team as years past, and I have them finishing third at 7-9.
Oh, I completely agree with you. I think that this is going to be a mediocre team, like you said, the Giants. I think Eli Manning will have his weeks where he'll look really good, but then he'll have his weeks where he throws 4 picks, and you're wondering why was he even throwing that ball in the first place. So I agree with you. I have them finishing third, but I have the Redskins finishing second. And listen, again, this is much like the AFC South to me, where the number one team is just that much better than everyone else. So that's why I have the Redskins finishing second. I think that their offense, if RG3 can stay healthy, is going to be pretty darn good with Deshaun Jackson, Pierre Garçon, RG3. There's a lot of big playmaking capability there. So I think that their offense can be scary if RG3 stays healthy. I don't have faith in him, much like you, but we both are shaky on RG3, but I have them finishing second, but not with a great record, a 500 record, if you will. But I have the Eagles finishing number one because they're just that much better, and there's no competition in this division at all for them.
Yeah, and for my second place team, I actually have the Dallas Cowboys finishing second. I think as bad as the defense is, you really can't deny their offense, and if you can score in this league, you're going to hang in there. Dez Bryant, I don't think Romo is as bad as people peg him out to be. This offense is legit. Dez Bryant, DeMarco Murray, who I think no one ever talks about, and this guy has been there every single year for them. Their offense from top to bottom, I think it's one of the better ones in the league, to be honest. And I think that as much, even if I'm correct in this, Stanko, and they finish second and they miss the playoffs, I still think Jason Garrett is going to lose his job. I have the Cowboys going 8-8 right now. Here with the Eagles taking care of business in the division. But like I said, I really, compared to the Vikings and compared to the Giants, I think that out of the three teams, it's the Cowboys that are the more stable organization right now, which is crazy to say. But I really think that because of how good the Cowboys offense is, they're going to hang around in some games and they're going to win. And I really, really don't believe in RG3, and that's why I have them finishing fourth. So from top to bottom, I have Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, and Redskins in the NFC East.
Yeah, for me, I have Eagles, Redskins, Giants, Cowboys. So we once again have a disagreement there. Let's get to
I mean, if I had my preference, whoever was right out of me and you, I hope you're right. I would love to see the Cowboys finish last in this division.
You're not biased at all. All right, let's move to a division that for me was fairly hard to pick from top to bottom. The NFC North. I think it's fairly easy to pick the last place team, even though I think they're going to improve this year. The Minnesota Vikings are going to bring up the basement in the North, but I still think they're going to be a team that competes with a lot of teams around the NFL.
Yeah, I agree. I think out of those teams, because if you look at this division, these four Vikings, they're on the up and up, obviously, because, first of all, Christian Ponder isn't going to be their quarterback anymore. So I think that is one plus that they can take. Adrian Peterson is still there, so they're going to get better. I think Kyle Rudolph is a very underrated tight end, and is going to be viable to their offense this year, because especially if Teddy Bridgewater does get some time, I think he'll be looking to kind of have a couple dump offs, kind of short passes. So I really think Kyle Rudolph is going to be an integral part of this offense. But yeah, compared to these other three teams in the league, you can't not pick the Vikings dead last in the division.
Yeah, all right. So then at number 3, who do you have finishing third in the North?
Third in the North, I went back and forth, but I'm going to stick with my original 4 in the NFC North, and I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions to finish third, only because as good as Matthew Stafford is, I still don't trust that he is going to play 16 games. I don't know how you feel about that, Stanko, but that's just my gut. I love Matthew Stafford. I'm a big fan of the Lions, and I'd be lying if I told you that I think the Giants are going to beat them week 1, because they are a very good football team. But I don't think they have it all together just yet. So I have the Lions finishing third in this division. They're there. They are pretty good. They've had some good seasons, but I don't trust altogether. Trust the Lions finishing better than third in the division.
I agree with you. For some reason, maybe because they were bad for so long, I don't have faith that the Lions can put together all the individual talent that they have. But I think that individually-wise, they got Reggie Bush at running back, Calvin Johnson, Golden Tate at wide receiver, 2 Matthew Stafford at quarterback. That's a pretty darn good-looking offense. Yeah, part of my gut is that they aren't going to be able to put it all together, just like you said. So I have them finishing third. And then at second, I have the Chicago Bears. Bears, I have them finishing second in the North. I don't know. How about you?
Yeah, I agree. I have the Bears finishing second with the Packers winning the division. There's just something about the Bears that they just can't get over the hump. They are always right there. Even with Lovie Smith when he was the coach, I feel like they were always 8-8. I feel like they were always 8-8, 9-7 on the cusp of doing good things, and they just never got there. And I think with how good the Packers are going to be this season, it's kind of hard to not pick them. For me, picking the Packers, it was kind of easy because obviously they won the NFC North, Stanko, last season with Matt Flynn, Seneca Wallace, and Scott Tolzien all starting games at quarterback.
That's so true.
Seneca Wallace started a game that he didn't even throw a pass in. He hasn't even thrown a pass in a game since 2011. Started a game for the Packers. So if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, I think that they're going to be completely fine. They'll get a first-round bye, and I think it's the Packers' division to lose. So I have Packers, I have the Bears finishing second with the Lions at third and the Vikings fourth.
We are in agreement with the NFC North. Now let's move to the NFC South, where I think that there's just a lot of turnaround in this division. You got the Panthers losing all the wide receivers. You got Lovie Smith going to Tampa Bay. You got Atlanta, who's a good team, had a bad year last year, and then you got the Saints. So for me, at the bottom, finishing in last place, the team will have the worst setback compared to last year. I have the Carolina Panthers bringing up the caboose in the NFC South.
Wow. Okay.
That's right. Why? Because they have 0 wide receivers whatsoever for Cam Newton to throw to. And I'm sorry, but D'Angelo Williams is not a running back who can carry your team, and Cam Newton can't do it all on his own. He's not that much of a Superman. Their defense is going to be good. Don't get me wrong; they're going to be incredibly good, but I don't see them scoring a lot of points, and I think that the other teams in this division have improved so much that the Panthers in the step back that they took, while it might not be large on a grand scale, in this division, it puts them behind the rest.
All right. I mean, that's valid, and I agree slightly, but I wouldn't go far as to say that they're going to finish last in the division. I still think that I don't see the Buccaneers having a fantastic season. I think Doug Martin is just – I don't see much out of Doug Martin, to be completely honest with you. I feel like he shows flashes of how good he can be, but I don't think he's a durable back. I just don't. I don't think in a 16-game season that he's going to be the consistent guy for you every week. And I think without him, I don't see much out of the Buccaneers. I think their defense is going to be pretty good, and they are going to improve. But I have the Buccaneers finishing last in the division. Third place, I will agree with you with some of your points. I have the Panthers finishing third in the division. I don't think that I think all they have is Cam, and they have their defense, and I think that's it. But their defense is going to kind of lift them out of the basement of the division. Cam, who did get hurt in the preseason, so I think that's something to look at. He cracked his rib in the preseason, so let's see how his durability is going to be throughout the year. But I think with their defense is too tough to finish last in the division, so I have the Buccaneers finishing last, and I have the Panthers finishing third.
Yeah, I got the Buccaneers finishing third, and I agreed with you that Doug Martin, I mean, I hope you're wrong, because I picked him up I think it was the 5th round in our fantasy draft last night, so I was pretty happy to get him in that round, so I really hope he comes through for me there. But I think that the addition of Logan Mankins is huge, and it really boosts the value of Doug Martin, because Logan Mankins, in my belief, is one of the best offensive linemen in football, and I was shocked that the Patriots got rid of him. Absolutely shocked.
seems like Stanko's playing a little favorites right now. He's a little biased with his boy Logan Mankins going to the Buccaneers, so that's why the Buccaneers can't finish last.
Well, I mean, listen, I also think that if you look at their wide receivers, Vincent Jackson and Mike Evans, those are two giant men. They are basketball players, that kind of height and length playing football. So I think Josh McCown's going to be able to throw the deep ball and be able to throw to them. And I think that they're a good team, and I think that their defense is going to be pretty good, and I think their offense is going to be better than Carolina's, which is going to edge them slightly over Carolina. And that's why I have Tampa Bay third. But I think we're in agreement for the rest of the division. It's Atlanta at number 2, then New Orleans at number 1, because you can't bet against Drew Brees and Sean Payton. And Atlanta, I think they're going to take a big step forward with Julio Jones being back for a full year.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I have the Falcons finishing second in the division, and obviously with the Saints finishing first. Just touching on the Saints first is obviously Drew Brees and their offense, but it's their improvement on defense that really is going to put them on another pedestal this year, because they were notorious for just being an offensive team. So I think that with their improved defense, it'll be great. Some people are saying that Brees might break Peyton Manning's record for passing yards this season, because he was kind of underrated last year. He was really throwing the ball. He had over 3,500 yards last year, and without Peyton Manning's fantastic record-breaking season, everyone will be talking about Drew Brees. But Drew Brees is right there too. But yeah, I think it's the Saints' division to lose. I think the Falcons are really going to step up and have a better year. I don't think they're going to be as hurt, and as long as everyone stays healthy on the Falcons, they'll be just fine like they were in previous years. They just had a really bad setback last year, so I have them finishing second. Yeah, so I have the Saints, I have the Falcons, I have the Saints, I have the Falcons, I have the Panthers, and I have the Buccaneers from top to bottom in the South.
So yeah, we're in agreement there. Now let's get to by far the best division in football, the NFC West. This one for me, I think that all these teams are so good, and for me, it's tough for me to say this, but I have a team that had, I think it was double-digit wins last year. I have the Arizona Cardinals finishing 4th.
Wow. Really?
Really. And I listen, it's not because they're not a good team. They are a good team. But I think that the Rams defense is that good. And I think that they'll be able to survive some games with Sean Hill quarterback. He's better than Kellen Clemens was last year. And granted, I had this picked when Sam Bradford was a quarterback, and I thought they'd be a playoff contender, a playoff sweeper. But now they're definitely not that anymore. But I got Cardinals at 4 and St. Louis at 3.
Okay, all right. First of all, I misspoke on the NFC South. I have the Saints, Falcons, Panthers, and Buccaneers are my 4th team. I think I said Falcons twice. Buccaneers, I'm finishing last in the NFC South. But going into the NFC West, I have the Rams finishing last. I think the injury of Sam Bradford is huge. He's going to be out for the year. I don't see the Rams really doing anything on offense this year. They are pretty good. They have a pretty good defense, which are going to keep them in some games, but I don't see the Rams making any noise. And I have the Arizona Cardinals finishing 3rd with a chance of a second wild card spot. I think the Cardinals are going to be pretty good. I think Andre Ellington is set for a huge year. He's getting a lot of buzz going into the year, and I believe it. I think Andre Ellington has the intangibles to really be a good every down back for the Cardinals, and that's something that they need. Obviously, you got a guy like Larry Fitzgerald who is a consistent threat on offense. So I have the Rams finishing last, and I have the Cardinals at 3.
All right, so then who do you got at number 2?
At number 2, I was going back and forth at this, but I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to go with the 49ers second. They've taken some hits, really, with their defense. As long as the Niners defense doesn't really collapse in the first few weeks without Navarro Bowman and Alton Smith, they should be all right. It's going to be tough because Smith is going to miss games against the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Saints, and the Broncos, while Bowman is going to miss all of those games except for the Saints. So it's going to be hard for the Niners. They've taken some hits on defense, but and plus the fact that I can't trust a running quarterback. And that really is what I think Colin Kaepernick is. So as good as they are, as balanced as a team as they are, I still think the Niners are going to finish second. They're going to be a wild card team. They're a playoff team. I have 3 teams in this division going into the playoffs because I think the Niners and the Cardinals are going to be the 2 wild card teams. But I have the Niners finishing second in the division with the Seahawks finishing first.
I agree with you. I have the Seattle Seahawks finishing number 1 because right now they're the Super Bowl champs. How can you not have them number 1? They've done nothing to really diminish their talent. They're going to have Percy Harvin for supposedly a full year next year if he stays healthy. So that's why I agree with you. Seattle number 1, San Francisco number 2. We disagree on 3 and 4. I have the Rams at 3, Cardinals at 4. You flip up them, Cardinals at 3, and the Rams at 4.
Correct. So a couple disagreements.
Yeah, a couple of disagreements. I think our biggest disagreement was in the AFC South in terms of the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Titans because I went out on a limb and laid my head out there for the guillotine, so I'm really hoping the Jaguars don't suck.
You really did. I thought I was going out on a limb to saying that the Titans were going to finish second, but you beat me to it, saying the Jaguars were going to finish second. I think the only other ones that we disagreed on is I had the Redskins finishing last in the division. You had them finishing second in the NFC East, as you had the Cowboys finishing last, with us both agreeing that the Eagles are going to win the division and the Giants finishing third. And I think the other one was I have the Buccaneers finishing last in the NFC South, as you have the Carolina Panthers having a major setback and have the Panthers finishing last in the NFC South. We agree that the Saints are going to win the division, and the Falcons are going to finish second, but we differ from the Panthers and the Buccaneers.
Yeah. So all right. So I think we agreed on a lot of the same points. So I think we disagreed on the severity of the various points, how much it will affect each team. I think that's a good summary of our conversation. But now to end this edition of the Strictly Business Podcast, it's our power rankings time. Ritz, we're going to rank our teams, our top 5 NFL teams heading into the season right now, starting at number 5. I'll go first. I have my New England Patriots at number 5 right now as the 5th best team in the NFL.
Okay. I'm a little surprised that they're not number 1 for you on your list.
I am a realist. I'm a rational person. Not really. not really. But for the sake of this podcast, yes, I'm a realist.
Okay. That's surprising. I will say that the Patriots are not in my top 5. I'm going to be honest with you. And number 5 for me is going to be the San Francisco 49ers. I think that they are a balanced team. They're not going to win the division like we stated, but I think the Niners are that next best team to not win their division. I think the Niners have enough. They always have a solid back in Frank Gore. They have a lot of stuff going on on the defensive end, but I think Jim Harbaugh is such a good coach that he's really going to weather the storm there with all the outside noise they're going to have. So I have the Niners at number 5 on my power ranking.
All right, I do not have the Niners in my top 5. I think that their defense has took too much of a hit, and I think that I don't have them in my top 5, to be honest with you. So we disagree at number 5. On number 4, who do you got?
Number 4, I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers. I think the Packers are one of the better teams, one of the top teams in the league. I think Rodgers is going to be in the MVP talk this year. I'm not going to say he's going to win it, but I'm going to say he's going to be in the talk. I think the emergence of Eddie Lacy is going to add on to how good the Packers are going to be. They're going to, like we said, they're going to win the division. And I think the Packers have a lot going on for them, and I have them 4 in my power ranking.
Okay. At number 4, I have the New Orleans Saints. I think that they're poised for a really, really big year. I think that Drew Brees looked great coming off his injury in the preseason. In the third preseason game I watched him playing, he looked fantastic, and that offense looked really crisp. The reason they're not higher, because they could be, is because I need to see their defense and how much they're going to improve first before I truly buy into it. But the Saints' offense is just so good that you have to have them in the top 5, so I got them at number 4.
And that's why they're number 3 on my power ranking. I have the Saints number 3. I agree with you. I think that they are set to have a special year this year, but I need kind of to see more to put them for me to put them above my other top 2 teams that we'll get into. I got to see how dominant is their defense going to be. If they have a pretty good defense, the Saints are going to be one of the top teams in the league because their offense is so dominant that as long as they get a little help from their defense, the Saints are going to win a lot of games. So I have the Saints number 3. For number 2, I have the Super Bowl champs, the Seattle Seahawks, for number 2 in my power rankings. Obviously, one of the best, if not the best, defense in the league. Obviously, the best home field advantage in the league. They do not have the best quarterback in the league in Russell Wilson. I think me and you both have stated about our kind of doubts about Russell Wilson. I think that Marshawn Lynch isn't going to have as good as a year as he did this past year. Got a lot of touches. I think you're going to see signs of fatigue from him, and honestly, I don't think he's going to get as many touches as he did. If their defense can hold up, then they're going to make some noise again. But they're still a pretty good football team. I have them number 2 on my power ranking.
Yeah, for me at number 3, I have Green Bay Packers, who are your number 4. I just think with Aaron Rodgers that offense is going to be dynamic, and I think Eddie Lacy is going to step up a really big time and be a good quality running back in the NFL. But at number 2, I got the Denver Broncos. For me, frankly, I don't know how you can't have Seattle number 1 because they're defending Super Bowl champions and they have done nothing to disprove the fact that they're going to get worse, that they're going to get any better because they're not Percy Harvin coming at the start of the season, and their defense is still going to be great. So I got the Broncos at number 2 because they did lose Eric Decker. They did lose Noshawn Moreno. Granted, they did add Aqib Talib and DeMarcus Ware on defense. Wes Welker, that concussion, you don't know how much that's going to affect him. And that's going to affect Peyton Manning because Wes Welker was a huge target for Peyton Manning in the red zone especially. So that's why I got the Broncos at number 2, and I said Seattle Seahawks are number 1. You're number 1 until you show me something that really, really is going to knock you off the top of that pedestal, and they haven't done anything to show that to me so far. So that's why I got the Seahawks number 1 and the Broncos number 2.
Well, I have the Denver Broncos at number 1 just because on the simple fact that you kind of mentioned it, they have additions. As bad as it might hurt the Broncos right now to lose Wes Welker, you could plug somebody in and Peyton Manning will make it work. He's one of the top quarterbacks in the league, so I'm not worried about their offense. They added Talib, they added Ware on defense, and I think their defense is going to be very good this year. They're in it to win it now. And like I said, I think the fact that the Seattle Seahawks didn't change anything is almost going to hurt them come playoff time because I don't believe in Russell Wilson at all. And let's see if Percy Harvin can do anything. I really don't believe in the Seahawks repeating. Do you have the Seahawks repeating, Stanko?
No, I do not. No, I do not.
Because I certainly do not. And I think that when you're talking about power rankings, in my eyes, I definitely don't see the Seahawks winning the Super Bowl. So that's why they aren't my number 1. I can see the Broncos going ahead and winning the Super Bowl. That's why they are number 1 in my power rankings. The Seahawks are number 2. So for me, it is the Broncos, the Seahawks, the Saints, the Packers, and the 49ers from top to bottom as my my top 5 power rankings.
And for me, I have the Seahawks, the Broncos, the Packers, the Saints, and then the Patriots at number 5. So we disagree a little bit there. I think the biggest is that you have San Francisco in there, and I don't, and I have New England. So, I mean, I got to go with my boy, Tom Brady, ultimate man crush. So I mean, there it is. I mean, I can't argue with what you said because your top 5 teams are very viable, and they all have a shot. And we should make it known that we are going to eventually give our Super Bowl predictions, but it will come in a later podcast. We decided that was too much to throw into this one. So they will be announced in a later podcast.
And also look out for, in a couple days, me and John will do our Week 1 predictions of the NFL. And we'll delve into just strictly Week 1 and who we believe will be who will start off 1-0 this season, who's going to start 0-1.
Yeah, that all-important first game in the season that every game matters. Also, I want to thank you, everyone, for listening to the second episode of the Strictly Business Podcast. Be sure to go on to Facebook and like our Facebook page, the Strictly Business Podcast, with Mike Ritz and Jon Stanko. Also,
Johnny, sorry to cut you off, but to talk about the Facebook page real quick, just double-check. We are now at 65 likes. So I just want to thank everyone who is listening right now. If you liked our Facebook page, thank you. Show your friends, show your family. We're trying to get as many likes as we can. So if you did like our page, thank you. And if you're listening to this now and you didn't like our page yet, like our page and you'll get updates on what's going on with the Strictly Business Podcast.
Yeah, and be sure to share the podcast with as many people as you can. Trying to get our voices out there, and there will be opportunities for the audience to chime in whenever you guys have a suggestion for an idea or for an improvement or something that you'd like to see changed. Just be sure to tweet at either me or Mike, message us, text us, call us. We are always welcome to recommendations and ideas, so be sure to let those known. So I want to thank you, everyone, for listening. For Mike Ritz and Jon Stanko, this is the second episode of the Strictly Business Podcast. Tune in next week for episode 3, where we'll obviously recap the first week of the NFL and delve into whatever other sports topics of the day there are. So thank you, everyone, for listening.